The moon is about to come crashing down. Are you ready to deal with the evil within? Let's find out. Our story begins in the forest of Termina. Link is riding Epona. Skull Kid comes out of nowhere, kidnaps Epona, takes the Ocarina of Time, and runs off, leaving Link cold. So, the story continues, and Link is still looking for Epona. Finally, he runs into Skull Kid and sees that he's playing with the Ocarina of Time. Confused, like Dennis the Menace, he's looking at the Ocarina, but he has the Majora's mask on. And this mask is sacred and super evil. This is where the story takes the dark turn and makes this interesting. Link tries to get back the Ocarina of Time, but Skull Kid ends up taking Epona and leaving him alone. This is where Link falls into the Termina capsule, and our story begins here. Also, the transformations of masks. The masks have several stories on how they become attached to Link, and this is something that's really interesting in how the story progresses. Also, you have 72 hours once you're in Termina. It's not like Hyrule, but Termina is a very small town with very small village people, and also there's a lot of mask collecting in this game. The story will confuse you at times, but also make you cry. I mean, these characters are such amazing characters. They're so emotional. You will grow attached to them. This is how dark and sad the story will become. The music also makes you feel like you're in this game with the characters. You feel for them, and you also feel really bad for them, and some of the encounters within those 72 hours. So it's a big story, and it's just amazing. I don't know how they thought of this story, going to the dark route and changing it from Ocarina of Time, but this is something that's really unique, and I really like the story and getting into this. So let's find out what I thought about the gameplay and so on. I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get down to it. Okay, you will have 72 hours in Zelda time to save the land. So, warning to any of you guys out there that do not finish this within 3 days, which is 72 hours in the game. Once you retrieve your Ocarina, you can travel back to the beginning of the first day anytime you like, but there's a catch. While the game's world is identical each time around, you get to keep some of your stuff. Therefore, rupees. Rupees will be gone. All your items that you've collected will stay and remain in your start menu. It's basically the movie Run Lola Run without that badass techno music. And the time travel really works when you begin to understand how everyone is following the exact schedule within those 3 days. Those 3 days will change the way you look at all these characters, and I mean that sincerely. These characters will do the same thing over and over. Even if you start over those 72 hours, it's like Groundhog Day, if you guys have ever seen that movie. Throw in some weapons, monsters, and the impending doom of a falling moon, and you've got the right idea. You know where I'm coming from with this. Also, this is kind of like a linear RPG that follows the mode of its predecessor from the last game. The land of Hyrule is still filled with all manner of creature and townsfolk, but this is Termina. You begin the game under a Deku Scrub curse, trapping Link into the body of a sad-eyed Deku Scrub. Once you lift that curse, you are left with a Deku mask. Put the Deku mask on and you become that Deku. Take it off and you are back to Link. And this is something that's really cool. There's 3 transformation masks. First one I just explained. There's also a Goron mask and a Zora mask, endowing you with all the powers of those species. And this is something that's really cool. Despite the fact in the game there's 26 masks overall, and great majority of them work like the mask in the previous Zelda that affects small events and the way people respond to you, but they don't transform Link. These 3 masks, the Deku Scrub, the Goron, and the Zora, have stories behind them, which is amazing. These stories will make you cry, probably make you cry because they're so depressing. Each story, you have to save one of the creatures from going into a peaceful, kind of like a dying way, and then they present you with their mask, kind of like the spirit. You put on the mask, you resemble the Zora, the Deku, or the Goron. There's always a story behind it, and that's what's amazing about these three masks. The mask concept results in a gameplay mix somewhere between Zelda and maybe Banjo-Kazooie. Since some masks turn you into different creatures, like I said, the play mechanics vary. On one hand, you'll get all the positives and new styles of control and way to interact with your environment, which is fun. But you'll also get some frustrations, which I really had a lot of them. Floating through the air on little flowers and rolling across ramp Goron style can get annoying and repetitive. Nonetheless, the solid swordplay and targeting system still lies perfectly. Sword fighting feels more honed and developed. Targeting works like before, where you can set the camera to be locked and centered on one opponent, which allows you to concentrate on that battle, but occasionally objects can briefly get into the way of the camera, which is a downfall for me. The solution is simply moving to get the object out of the way, but I would rather see transparency. I do appreciate how the game doesn't feel like Ocarina of Time, but instead picks up right where things left off. The more basic weapons are earned closer to the beginning instead of compelling the player to play through huge dungeon for some bombs or no longer hook shot, while the powered arrows were more of an afterthought from the original. They become much more important in this game and in this time. For this matter, the level difficulty has been up a notch from before. I know I have a lot to say, but there's a lot I need to cover. There's much less handholding as you try to find the entranceway to all the dungeons, each of which is huge, smartly designed. And like I said, there's dungeons, and you will be timed. Within this 3-day cycle, which is 72 hours, you can play the Ocarina of Time backwards to slow time down, but you are still being timed. Overall, the gameplay, like I explained, is basically like Ocarina of Time, but you're being timed. Graphically, next to Ocarina of Time, this is the best of what the N64 has to offer. I mean, the engine is essentially unchanged from the first game, only sharper and with more detail. You see Link more detailed, and it looks like he's not too cartoony. The biggest improvement is that the towns and buildings, also the interiors, are now actually mapped out. From the previous game, they weren't mapped out. Instead of the low resolution wraparound from before, it's certainly a beautiful game. However, when you compare this to what's being nowadays to other systems, it looks kind of like muddled and kind of dry. I mean, the N64 just cannot keep up with the Dreamcast or the PlayStation 2, and you can't help but wonder what this game would have looked like if it were on a beefier console. I should mention that the game requires the N64 RAM expansion pack, which is the red pack, but most of you probably already know that, so I won't even get into that. My overall score for this game, I would give it, honestly, throughout the whole gameplay, the 72 hours, I would give it a 7.5. Yeah, it's true. Okay, relax. I'll tell him the truth, okay? I'll tell him the truth. Relax. The overall connection I had with these characters and how they made me feel personally playing throughout the 72 hours and watching them grow on me was fantastic. I had such a great time interacting with them as Link and finding out what their problems were, and that's something that not too many games back on the N64 did for me. There are very depressing moments when you do have to save and play the Song of Healing for the 3 transform masks that you do get, but those are really amazing moments in the game. Also, the music is astounding. It's just amazing. It makes you feel like you are in this dark world of Termina and you feel for these characters, and that's something also that attachment to this game, and I still love it. I mean, next to the 3DS version, this is the version that I grew up playing, and honestly, I love the graphics. Even if they're still didn't age too well, it's still a fantastic game. There's so many points in this game where I just wanted to go back and replay it, which you can after the 72 hours. I mean, you got good hack and slash, hard difficulty in dungeons, an intriguing story, a worthy successor to the first one, and occasionally some frustrating times where you have to be on your feet, but that's any Zelda game. And like I said, this is a 10 out of 10. This is another classic in the N64 collection. This is Critical Redemption with another game review, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Happy gaming and take care.